I'm streaming now. All right. So, okay, let's begin. Hey, God. I'm streaming. So, today we'll be looking into introduction to React, core concept, and setup with Vite. So, we are going to look into the foundation of React and what's all about. All right. So course outline for today is we'll be looking into what is React, why React versus vanilla JavaScript, component architecture, single page apps, what is Vite, create app with Vite, and project structure. Then we'll go into the challenges which I would give it out for you guys to try out. So when next we meet, we will be doing the practical of React. So before I start, if you have any question, please do well to drop it in the comments and we will attend to that. So this is organized by Tech Origin. Yeah, Tech Origin. Okay, so what exactly is React? So React is a JavaScript library that we use for building user interfaces. So in simple terms, this user interfaces is part of a website that users can see and interact with. So things like the buttons, forms, dashboards, menus, all those visible parts are what the user interfaces are. It was created by Facebook, which is now called Meta, right? That should already tell you that it's something powerful and reliable because it's used in a large scale application. So one important thing I want you to understand is this, because it's a concept people have carried right from the beginning, which is React a framework or not? Is it a full framework, or does it mean backend is in React and all? So one thing you should note is that React is not a full framework like Angular. It only focuses on the UI, the user interface, that is the front end part. So it doesn't handle everything like backend logic or database operations. It does one job and it does it very well, which is building interfaces. That is why developers love it. So React is used by millions of developers and companies worldwide. Companies like Facebook, Instagram, Netflix, and many more, right? They use React to build their platform or their applications. So that should give you a level of confidence to using React for your application. So think of React as a tool that helps you build websites faster and in a more organized way. So instead of writing everything in one long file like we do in vanilla JavaScript, React allows us to break our UI into small reusable pieces, which we call components. Okay. For example, examples of components can be a button. Button can be a component. A nav bar can be a component. Even a whole page can be made of multiple components. So with this, instead of repeating code like we do in vanilla JavaScript, you just reuse these components, and that makes your code cleaner and easier to maintain. So there are three important concepts you should remember about React. First one is declarative, meaning you describe what you want. You tell React what you want, and React handles how it updates the UI. Second one is the component base, like everything is broken into small reusable parts like the buttons, the nav bar, the footer, and all their components that can be reused in other parts of the project or the application. Then the concept of learn once, write anywhere. This means once you understand React, you can use it for web development, you can use it for your mobile, like in the case of React Native and many more. So in summary, React is a powerful JavaScript library for building modern interactive user interfaces, and it helps us write cleaner, faster, and more maintainable code. Okay, why React? Why should I bother using React for my applications? Why there are other tools or libraries or frameworks that I can use? Why would I want to use React? Okay, so there are many front-end tools out there. So why is React so popular? The first one is reusable components. So React allows you to build something once and you reuse it anywhere in your application or your project. So let me give you a simple example. If you create a button component, right? If you create a button component, you don't need to rewrite that button code again and again across different pages. So if a button component takes over 10 lines of code, you don't need to create another file to write that same implementation. You just need to create that button component, then call the button name in the part of the code or the part of the application you want to use that component. So you are reusing it. That is why we say it's a reusable component. React is a reusable component. Okay, so it applies to navbar, footer, cards, forms, and whatever. So this helps you save time because since it's been reused, you don't spend much time reinventing the wheel by rewriting what you have written or done in the past. So it reduces errors and it keeps your code clean. So instead of writing code everywhere, you just break your UIs into small pieces and reuse them. The second one is virtual DOM. So this might sound big, but I'll try to simplify this. So normally when something changes on a web page, the browser may reload or update many parts. That's what it means. The browser tries to reload many parts or the entire website. But with React, it is very smart. It only updates what actually changed, not the whole page. That's what the virtual DOM does. Okay, so I'll go into my whiteboard to explain what I mean by that. So let's say this is my web page, right? This is my web page, assuming this is my web page. Okay, so it has different parts. It has different parts here. It has different parts here. These are different sections. Maybe this part is the nav bar. This part is the footer and all. Maybe this could be another component. So the virtual DOM, what it does is if there is a change here, you don't need to reload the entire page to get that change. What happens is that it is going to load just that component instead of the entire page. And that is why I said it leads to faster performance and smoother user experience, because whenever there's a change, you don't want to end up preloading the page, which might take time to display all these components again, which doesn't make sense. Okay, so your app feels fast and responsive even when it grows big. All right, so the third one is easy state management. Easy state management. In simple terms, state means data that can change in your app. State means data that can change in your app. For example, a counter increasing, a form input changing, a user logging into an application. That is state changing, data that can change in your application. So React makes it easy to keep your UI in sync with your data. So whenever your app changes, React automatically updates the UI for you. You don't need to manually manipulate the DOM like in vanilla JavaScript. It automatically updates the UI for you and keeps it in sync. Okay. Finally, massive community. Massive community. It has a very large community worldwide. So what does that mean for you? Since this React has a very large community worldwide, there are tons of tutorials out there for you. If you want to go into React, there are so many tutorials that talks about React, like this one you are watching. Then we have many libraries and tools. Then you can easily find a solution on Google or Stack Overflow. Maybe you're building an application and you got stuck somewhere. You can go to Google or Stack Overflow to find similar solutions that have been solved by some other developers, which helps you to solve yours and go over to the next. So if you're stuck, chances are someone has already solved that problem. So why React in summary? It helps you build usable components, you can create fast applications, you can manage data easily, and can get support from a large community. That's why React is one of the most in-demand skills in front-end development today. Okay, if you have any question, please feel free to drop it in the comment. Thank you. So let's compare two things you already know or are learning: React versus vanilla JavaScript. So first, what is vanilla JavaScript? I know we have been talking about vanilla JavaScript and you'd be like, is vanilla JavaScript and ice cream or what? So vanilla JavaScript is just a plain JavaScript that doesn't have libraries, no framework. It's just you and the browser. Okay, no libraries, no framework. In case you are asked what is vanilla JavaScript, it is JavaScript without libraries or frameworks. It is just you and the browser. Okay, so now let's see the difference between the two. Let's start with React. So React uses something called a component-based architecture. That simply means you break your UI into small reusable parts. For example, we have the navbar, which can be a component, like I've earlier explained. We have the button, we have the card. All these are components. Don't worry, you might not really understand card, button, like card, what card really mean. But when we go into practical, you would get to understand what these terms are. So with all this, your app becomes organized and easy to maintain because it is a component-based architecture. Okay. Another powerful thing is automatic UI update. I've already explained that. So in React, when your data changes, the UI updates automatically. So with this, you don't need to start writing. Maybe there's an update, you don't need to start writing document.getElement by ID or try to target the inner HTML or like doing all those write up and all, because React does that for you. It handles all that for you behind the scene, right? So third one is the built in state management. So React helps you manage changing data easily. So things like user inputs, counters, login state. When you're trying to log in an application, React helps you to track and update your UI. Okay. Very importantly, we have the reusable code where you write once, reuse everywhere. You create a button component and you reuse it in all parts of your application that needs the button component. Okay. So this leads to cleaner code and less stress when it comes to rewriting and repeating yourself again, right? Finally is the declarative approach. Declarative UI approach. This one is key. So in React, you simply say, this is what I want the UI to look like, and React figures out how to make it happen. Okay, React figures out how to make it happen. So let's go over to vanilla JavaScript. Okay, so the first one is the manual DOM manipulation. Here you control everything yourself. So if something change, you will manually have to select that element, update the content, and handle everything step by step. You will have to select that element, update the content of that element. Maybe you have the H, or you have the H tag that says hello world, and maybe there was a change to that hello world. You have to go to your code, target that tag, update the content of that tag, and like you handle basically everything step by step. But React is not like that. It does that for you behind the scene. Okay, then complex update logic. As your app grows, you might not notice this, because when you use vanilla JavaScript for smaller projects, it's very easy because it's not that large. But as your app grows, you tend to add more features to the application. Your code becomes messy. You start seeing a file that has over 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 lines of code, because your app is actually growing, and honestly, you're not going to understand, or you won't even like the project or the application anymore, because you get discouraged when looking at your application or your code, right? So that is really hard to maintain. Then the state is hard to track. So if multiple things are changing, maybe the username is changing, the password is changing, or the location of the user is changing, it becomes difficult to keep track of those changes. You might even introduce bugs without knowing, right? Then repetitive code everywhere. You find yourself repeating the same logic in different places. So no structured reuse like React component. For example, you have created the button component that had over 10 lines of code. Whenever you want to use that button logic again, you find yourself rewriting that 10 lines of code again, when you could have just created a button component, and just call the button component into another part of your application. That is possible with React, but with vanilla JavaScript, it is not. So you end up repeating that logic again. Imperative approach. So you tell the browser exactly how to do everything step by step. Example, select this, change this, update this. Like you are writing what you want the browser to do step by step. But with declarative, you just tell React, I want this without those steps, and React does all those steps that is in your head. Just, I want to build a button component, and it does everything for you without making you worry about writing those things step by step. So bottom line is, in vanilla JavaScript, you manually control everything, which can become stressful and error prone. But with React, you describe what you want and React handles the updates automatically using the virtual DOM. Alright. If you have any question, feel free to drop it in the comment section. Great. So let's talk about component-based architecture, and we have talked about it, so we're going to go in depth into it. So think of a website like Lego blocks. Each block is a component. You combine them to build a full application, right? You combine them to build a full application. So instead of building one long confusing file, we break our UIs into small independent pieces. So I'll go over to my whiteboard to explain sorry, what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is my design, right? So assuming this is my design, then this is my code, where this just displays my file, the files I have in my project. Okay, don't mind the drawing. So this is a logo blog website that has different parts. Yeah, I could have my nav bar here. I could have the the footer here. Then I could have the sidebar. Yeah, then here could be a button. Maybe here could be another button. Here could be a card. Maybe this place is a card. So this is a simple design. So that is a card. So first, you look at the UI. What you need to do is that first, the UI you're seeing here is broken into smaller pieces. These are the smaller pieces: the navbar, the footer, the button, the card, the sidebar. All these are the smaller pieces. Each piece is called a component. This is a component, there's a component, there's a component, component, right? Components can contain other components. Components can contain other components, meaning inside this card component, I can have a button here, I can have a button here. That is why I say components can contain other components. So when you notice component containing other components, we call that nesting, right? We call that nesting. And each component controls its own logic and appearance. This has its own logic, this has its own logic. And also, in simple terms, you divide your UI into small reusable parts, unlike JavaScript that does everything in one file. But with React, you create a file for this component, you create a file for this card component, you create a file for this component, you create a file for this component, you create a file for your sidebar, and when you bring in everything together, you just need to call the name, call it the name sidebar file, call the name navbar file, and it displays and renders everything in the UI. Okay, so that's just that. So if you look at the structure, on your right hand side, you see how React is structured. Okay, at the top we have the app. This is like the boss component. Inside it we have the header, the navbar, the footer, then somewhere in the middle, maybe inside a main component, we might have things like the card, which could be one, two, three, or multiple cards. So everything is just arranged like a tree, right? Where we have the parent and the children. Then this is another example of how the components looks like in React. When we go into practical, you would see all this. Okay. All right. We'll go over to single page application. SPA simply means single page application. Now, what does that mean? It means your app loads only one HTML page, just once, just one HTML page. After that, everything that changes on the screen happens without reloading the entire page. So let's break it down. The app loads once, right? So we just do a practical. The app load once. So let's go to a website, a web application that makes use of React. Like for example, Notion makes use of React. So this is me coming into this application. It loads once, right? Now when you click something, it doesn't refresh the whole page, right? It doesn't refresh the whole page. So if I'm clicking, maybe I click on startup, you don't see any reload. If I click on maybe academy, I click, okay, this is taking me to a different website, right? This is taking me to a different website. So let's just stay in this notion.com. So if I click Notion AI, what happens? It renders the Notion AI without reloading the page. If I click on knowledge base, I want to see knowledge base, you see it has routed me here. It has loaded the knowledge base page without having to reload the entire page. This is like your HTML page. It loads once and everything that happens is inside the page. Okay, but looking at some vanilla JavaScript websites, one of them is Growth Foundry. Growth Foundry was built using HTML, CSS, vanilla JavaScript. So with this now, you notice a difference when I'm routing to another page. What happens? See, it loads. It reloads the entire page. So if I want to check how it works, you notice it's loading the entire page, or about, it keeps loading the entire page, which doesn't make sense, right? It's loading the entire page. But another example is plain vanilla web.com, right? I want to see welcome. You notice it's loading the entire page. I want to see components. It's loading the entire page, which shouldn't be so. Only part of the screen should load, right? Not refreshing the whole page as a result of clicking something. So the app load once. When you click something, it doesn't refresh the page. Only parts of the screen updates, right? Only parts of the screen updates. React handles navigation by swapping components. It handles the navigation by swapping components, right? It's handling this navigation by swapping. All these are components. Slash themes is a component that has been enterprise. It's a component. So it's not reloading, but it's swapping the component, changing the component as a result of React doing that. That is why it's very fast, like a mobile application. Okay. Hope that is clear. So difference between the single page application and the traditional way, right? For the traditional way, you've noticed that you click a link, the whole page reloads, new HTML loads, everything refreshes, it feels slower. The reason why you're noticing that it's still fast because there is nothing in this page, right? There's nothing in this page. Imagine a website that has so many images, so many videos, and or so many content files. You notice that when I'm visiting a page, those images will be fetched again. It will take time to fetch those images before it displays everything here. That's why you're seeing it looks faster, because there is nothing here for me to do. There are no images, there are not much images. But with React SPA, single page application, there is no full reload. It's only components change, the DOM updates partially, and it is very fast. It is very fast. So section 20 is just setting up your React with Vite, setting it up. In our next class, we'll do more of practical, where I'm going to show you what and what is there. Okay. So let's look at what Vite is. What is Vite? Not Vite. What is Vite? Pronounced as V-E-E-T. What is Vite? So what exactly is Vite? Vite is a tool that helps us create and run React apps very fast. It's a tool that helps us create and run React apps very fast. So think of it like the engine that powers your React project during development. Okay. So the first thing about Vite is its outstanding feature of instant start. So Vite starts your app in milliseconds. So meaning you don't need to wait for your app to start, like waiting for a longer time. It starts it immediately. So if you've used older tools, I remember when I began my journey in front-end development, learning front-end, I didn't start with Vite, a tool like Vite. I started with a tool called Create React App. That was the tool I used for running React, and I noticed the time it takes for that tool to load and start up your React application. It takes a very longer time. Okay, when we go into practice, you would see that. All right, Vite is very fast. Okay, next one is hot module replacement. This is very powerful. When you make changes in your code, it updates instantly without having to reload a page. So let's say you have started your application, you use Vite to run your React, and your application has started, and in a part of your page, maybe this is your page, you have this component, you have this water day, and let's say you go to your code to change component to component. Maybe you removed the S in this component and typed component. With CRA, create React app to, sometimes when the application is very, like, it's a lot, there are so much things in the application, it doesn't update immediately. You end up coming here to reload the page in order to get the update from your code. Like, it's not very fast. It's not very fast, especially when your application scales. But with Vite 2, when there is a change, you made a change, a code change, it updates instantly. It's very fast. So that is the hot module replacement. So you change a text hello to hi, and you see immediately any no refresh. Okay. Then modern bundler, meaning before we're using Create React app, and it has replaced that, which leads to faster and leaner approach and feature. So it's faster, it's cleaner, and it's more modern. Okay, I won't advise you running your React using Create React app, except you want to really try that out. Then yeah, good luck with that. But trust me, you won't like yourself. So optimize builds. When you're ready to deploy your app, Vite automatically makes it fast and optimized for production, right? For production where everyone can see what you are building. Yeah. So if you are still confused about the difference between these Vite and the other two, like CRA, you can just think of Vite like a cooking with gas against firewood. So back then there was nothing like gas cooker. So what we were using then was firewood. So firewood is like the O2, which was slow. If you want, you use firewood to, let's say you use firewood to boil water, you notice that it is slow and it's very stressful, especially when you're trying to set up and put fire to the firewood. But gas cooker came in. So gas cooker is likened to the Vite. It's likened to the Vite 2, which is very fast, very clean, and very efficient. So which would you prefer? Do you prefer to use the firewood or the CRA Create React app, or you prefer to use gas cooker or Vite? The choice is yours. If there's any question, please you can drop it in the group or in the comment section. So in summary, Vite helps us to start the app instantly, see changes immediately, build faster application, work more efficiently. So anytime you're starting a React project, please use Vite. Except you want to explore, you want to see what, if you want to confirm what I'm saying, you can try the CRA for yourself. Okay, so these are the steps in creating your React app with Vite. Like I said, we will not do practical now, we'll do it in the next video. So this is the steps in creating your Create React app with Vite. When we go into the practice, we'll use these steps in order to create our own, create the app, enter the project folder, install dependencies, start the dev server. We'll do all this in our next video. Okay. All right, so this is a project structure. This is how React structures looks like. Okay, so after running the npm create Vite, after running the npm create Vite, this is what your project will look like. Think of it like a house. Everything has its place, everything has its position. So the first one is the my app. The my app is your main project folder. Everything lives inside your folder, which is my app, the root project folder. The next one is the index.html. This is the first file the browser loads. It's very important. It contains the component root, the root component, where React will inject everything inside. It is where React is going to inject everything inside that root component. Without this, you will not see any display. You're not going to see anything in your UI. This makes it possible to see those features, those design that you have done within React. This without these roots, you won't see anything. Okay. Third one is the package JSON. So this file manages your project dependencies. Like when you install React, it stores them in your package JSON. When you're using Vite, it stores them in your package JSON. Scripts like npm run dev, all those scripts are stored in your package JSON. Then we have the Vite config JS. This is where your configuration lives, right? For now, we won't touch it too much, but as we go deeper, we would make use of that. Then the SRC is the most important folder. This is where your real work is. Okay, so if anything is happening in your application, it is happening inside the SRC. Let's say you build or you design the sign up page or your login page or the home page or your footer or your whatever, everything, all those designs within your SRC folder. Then we have the inside the SRC folder, we have the main file. This is the entry point of your React application. This is the entry point of your React app renders app into the index.html. So after the main file, we have the app file. This is your main component where your UI starts here. Your UI starts here. It's your main component. Anything you want to show on the screen starts in the app file. We also have the app CSS. This is for styling your app component. Okay, so how React starts, it starts from the index.html, meaning the browser loads this first, then it goes to the main.js. It connects the React to the page using the main file. Then it defines what we see. The file that defines what we see, that is the root component. Your UI starts here. That's the app.jsx. This defines what people will see. Okay, then finally is the browser, which displays everything. So React, when you run your React, it starts with the index.html, where the browser is going to load the HTML file. It goes into your main file, and it goes into your app, and finally the browser displays that. Don't bother yourself with what JSX means. When we go into the practical, you would understand that. Okay, they are basically the same thing. They are all JavaScript files. JavaScript X is like JavaScript extension, right? So I would, no different, right? No different, but I will tell you why that is there. Okay, so I think we've come to the end. We have the student challenges where you can attempt this. We have the beginner challenge, the intermediate, and the advanced. So most of this, it's up for you to try them out. So in our next class, when we're going to practice, we would bring all this into practice, and then you might fully understand what have been explained. All right, thank you so much, and do have a wonderful day. Feel free to drop your questions, your comments in the comment section, and we will attend to it. Thanks.